Hello, and welcome to the Trust Blueprint. Today, we're diving into a transformation that promises to reshape the world's largest asset class, moving real estate entirely on-chain. My guest today is Natalia Karayaneva. I've been tracking Natalia's work as she pioneers the digitization of property rights, pushing the boundaries of what's possible in the built world. Natalia is the founder and CEO of Propy. Propy is a Silicon Valley company revolutionizing home purchasing with AI-assisted title and escrow, powering on-chain real estate. Natalia is an award-winning real estate developer, software engineer, and a serial entrepreneur with extensive knowledge in real estate and cryptography. What excites me most about this conversation is how deeply it resonates with our mission of proof. While Propy works to automate the home buying process, they're ultimately solving the same trust problem we face daily, bridging the gaps in identity, authority, and provenance that currently block true automation. Having spent decades at the intersection of tech and policy myself, I know the immense challenge of modernizing legacy institutions. Natalia is taking on one of the most outdated industries in the world to make transactions secure and transparent for everyone. Join us for a conversation on the convergence of AI, blockchain, and the future of programmable property. Welcome, Natalia. Great to have you. You're joining us from where today?
Hi, Pat. I'm joining from Miami. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to have this conversation. So for folks listening, you and I first met probably nearly 10 years ago. I actually looked at my calendar. I think I visited your offices on Alma Street in Palo Alto in 2018, I think. Does that sound right?
Yes, that sounds right. Yeah, before the COVID time, before the crazy time when we still worked in the offices. Yeah, I remember this meeting. I remember you sharing what it's been for you to grind. Yeah, I remember
Yeah,
that
well,
day.
both of us. I mean, I think it's really thrilling, for us to be on the other side where what I do seems obvious and now what you do seems obvious too. But going back, the idea that real estate would move on chain, people probably thought you were crazy. So what is it that you saw in the world years ago that made you think the real estate industry would ultimately be better served on a blockchain?
Yeah, you're right. It's kind of crazy to think about 2018 and 17 and talk about blockchain then versus now. When we have a crypto-friendly administration where in 2025 we have so many blockchain-related laws being passed. Kind of being at that time, you believe in the future of this new age technology such as blockchain or even AI now. Many would think you're crazy, but then when you have this software background in your mind and when you know that internet became what you thought it would become, and it's just those fundamental technologies that are inevitable to be adopted, but still it feels unbelievable today where we are. It feels surreal that we were able to predict the future. The adoption in real estate still very behind, frankly. We don't know when the crypto rails will be the norm in real estate transactions or the blockchain will be the norm for ownership transfer, maybe in 5 years, in 2 years, in 20 years. But it's just something I strongly believe is inevitable.
So where are we today for folks listening? I mean, when we met back then, the idea that you were going to notarize things online was nuts, and the idea that real estate would move on blockchain was nuts. But today, why don't you give folks an explanation of what's Propy doing in the world today?
So today, Propy is a licensed title and escrow company, and the majority of our deals are traditional in dollars, just normal transactions. If you Google us, you'll see Propy title in Florida, Arizona, Colorado, and now Alabama as well. And we just do normal transactions, closings, right? But at the same time, we operate as a tech company, and with our engineers being involved in day-to-day transactions, they understand what needs to be done to fully automate the process. And that was the mission from day one. From day one, we had no idea that we will be pioneers in AI or in blockchains in prop tech. We were using all those technologies, tools to solve some things particular. But the day one mission is to automate the transaction process I know you're passionate about that as well. And I've been in real estate as a real estate developer for many years. So obviously seeing the transportation being changed and hospitality being changed and real estate being behind, that's where I got this vision. And I'm happy that we're building writing and finally it's being adopted and it's becoming kind of a standard, right?
Mm-hmm. And you had some early successes though, actually doing transactions on chain. How did those come to be? What's the story behind those?
Yeah, so I like to compare our journey to the Netflix journey because when Netflix founders predicted the future that one day people will be streaming movies online and watching them online on demand, it was an insane idea. And they started to sell CDs online. So it's kind of still a service delivered by internet, but they were selling CDs, a physical thing that you would receive and then watch. So they were doing those two businesses in parallel. And imagine when they closed the CDs online business, only 2 years ago. So it was until recently, this second kind of traditional-ish business was alive. In our case, the CDs online is a title and escrow service that we're providing today. But then the true streaming of ownership on chain, that's something that we strongly believe will happen in the future. That's something that Netflix built after they got the market share of selling movies. So we had those, to your question, we had those 4 breakthrough transactions on blockchain, entirely on blockchain, where people were able to connect their wallet, transfer their stable coin in on-chain open auction, and they would become owners of a home immediately, instantaneously. So we do a lot of work beforehand to prepare the house, to prepare buyers and the seller for the purchase. But once the auction is happening, it happens entirely on chain and secure and no bureaucracy, minimum bureaucracy. So I think that's where we're moving forward. I don't know when this new standard though will be a standard in America and globally, but that I'm very passionate about this future. With less bureaucracy, the new generation will be able to enter home ownership with less friction and with more excitement.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm a big believer in the sort of revisionist American version of American history that says that homeownership wasn't just about doing the right thing for people, it was giving them a stake in society. And this idea that your property records is really one of the most important assets that you have, right? Like if you want to borrow against, your assets, you're borrowing against property records. If you want to establish, participation in a community. And so maybe to help people understand, why do you believe that the blockchain future that you envision is more secure? How does it better fulfill that mission for people?
Well, I think the path that we've been building was all about building the internet and moving information online. Then the next wave was building programmable layer of money. And now the next decade is programmable trust. So what you're building, the identity to be fully verifiable online, and then what we're building now, ownership to be fully transferable online, this part could be delivered securely only via blockchain. So the blockchain is this immutable ledger that allows us to transfer ownership and value and assets in a secure manner. Bitcoin has been around for over 16 years now, so it's a proven protocol. And that's the next decade to move ownership. And to your point, what we're building, the foundation of property ownership is what drives capitalism, what drives democracy, There is amazing book that I'm a big fan of, which is The Mystery of Capital by Hernando de Soto. And indeed, it's very important people to own homes and land, and it's a part of the sovereignty of one state when people have the ability to own this most valuable asset on earth, and also, to your point, to get financing against it. And that's one of the reasons the developing countries are still behind, because they don't have the ability to get financing and get their home as a leverage or their land as a leverage so that they can back their small businesses or their other needs, because their systems are so insecure or the ledger does not exist. So in America, blockchain can solve for home ownership affordability, because then the transaction cost will shrink. And with every single transaction, the cost just compounds, right? And that the whole value is compounding as well. In the developing country, really blockchain could be this foundational transformation technology that could address poverty.
So in terms of acceptance in the new administration and their, more friendly posture towards all things crypto, do you see any major changes on the horizon that will accelerate this future?
Yeah, and it's happening. From early days when we just started operating, the majority of states had introduced blockchain bills. That was 2017, 18, even the first one, I think it was in 16 in Vermont. We participated in one of them. It just meant that blockchain record is a legal record in America, and it serves as an evidence in courts, and it's immutable. So it's a better record keeping than paper or online and so on. Now, this year has been tremendous, and I'll share you a little story that is related to real estate. So this year we have the Genius Act passed, which is a stablecoin act, and about to get the Clarity Act passed, which means that the tokens, the cryptocurrencies, they're not securities, but the stablecoin also gives more regulation on allowing it to be legal, but also very secure and trustable, where every stablecoin has a reserve in a bank to $1, one stablecoin to $1, which gives this security to the consumer, right? So the interesting part is that some of our clients, real estate developers, they understood, okay, now it's kind of legal, it's legalized. So how about we share to our clients, especially international, that we accept cryptocurrency, stable coins. And suddenly in the summer, they had a spike of sales. One developer sold about 80% of their units in stable coins, which we did not expect. So that was quite a story. And then the other caveat is that when real estate developers store USDC as a form of a deposit payment, then this USDC yields higher than dollars. So they prefer to keep USDC or stable coins with Propy escrow with a very secure custody versus keeping dollars.
That's interesting. I never thought about that use case. That has implications for warehouse financing. I mean, for all sorts of things in the real estate industry. That's wild. I had no idea that was what was going on. So changing gears a little bit on the automation side, right? So for as much progress has been happening in the blockchain and crypto world, the AI world is moving even faster, if you can believe it, right? And so your ability to digitize your business process, how has that changed over the last couple of years with some of the new tools and technologies that exist?
Yeah, AI is a big topic, right? And I would love to learn from you as well what you've done in the AI space. And also one, I guess I would want to ask you about the AI fraud cases where sellers are pretending to be sellers and then selling their homes. But on our end, we started developing AI, initially just simple OCR technology for purchase agreement, extraction of terms, about 4 years ago. So it has not been this trend of generative AI taking over the world just yet. But again, being an engineer, it made sense, obviously, to use it for specific issues that we want, because we wanted from day one, we wanted to have smart contract executing the whole closing. And in order the smart contract to execute it, it has to have terms identified, and then all the contingencies and all the data throughout the transaction to be fed. And then in the end, when all the conditions are met, smart contract transfers ownership and the funds. So in order to accomplish that, we had AI read our agreements, read our papers, and extract the necessary data. Then we had to build a lot of integrations, including proof, which we're very proud of. And of course, the counties, the e-recording system, the bank, so that we do the disbursement. And then 2025 was such an incredible year for us and for AI. We introduced our agent Avery. It was quite a noisy Times Square momentum with Avery taking over a screen on Times Square in New York City. It was very fun. And we gave her a personality. So she has a social media account. She's fun. But then she has all those roles that, frankly, Pat, I did not expect. A year ago, when we were building the roadmap, I had no idea that she'll be able to do things that she's doing today. For example, she's calling lenders and asking for mortgage payouts so that our escrow officers don't have to chase lenders or HOAs.
I don't think people who aren't in real estate realize how much of the business process is calling people chasing down information. And it's not just data that needs to get transformed and moved around. So if you're actually using it for outbound calling, that's super compelling. How are people reacting when they get the call, or do they even know that it's an AI agent calling them?
That's a great question. First, the fun part when I'm listening to those live calls, first, it's a robot talking to robot. And normally the bank's robot is not good enough. So they're confused and they transfer the call to their human service. Or in the recent one I just listened, our AI agent Avery actually asked the robot, "Hey, can you please transfer me to your service?" The human one. So that was fun. And one day I can imagine an agent talking to an agent, but as soon as they get the job done and it's secure, why not, right? Instead of an integration, they exchange data this way. But what I'm also noticing that the human customer support at the banks, they probably notice that it might be an AI agent, or they hesitate, but they continue the conversation because they just want their job to be done. So we frankly didn't have any confrontations. And she's so amazing in doing this job, AI agent Avery. Initially, she was quite slow, but still answering a lot of questions. What's the account number? What's the loan number? What's the name? What's the last 4 digits? And how do we send it? So all those questions, and she knows the context. That's the most important part, to really build this MCP protocol so that the agent knows information about the transaction. But the recent ones are so smooth. You cannot detect that it's AI.
Wow. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, just to answer your question, I mean, the fraud space is wild. And the same rate of progress, unfortunately, is occurring there, and their tooling's getting better and better. I think in the real estate industry, I think what people forget is, the fraud also is happening in person, right? And, there's data out of FinCEN, their most recent fraud report, false records is actually the highest type of fraud. And so AI, of course, makes it possible to generate a fraudulent employment history or income history, but also a driver's license and a passport, right? And so in many cases, people are, generating these falsified identity documents, and they're walking into title companies in person where the person's just, looking at the image or the license and saying, okay, Natalia, I'll transfer your house, right? And so we've made an enormous 3-year investment now in this, and I frankly think it's going to be endless. Like there's going to be no end to our need to invest in fraud detection and deepfake detection. This is why we partnered with Visa recently to get access to more data and technology to address these problems. And we're living on the other side of this, right? Like you can pretend to
Yeah.
be somebody else now perfectly, and that's a huge problem that I don't think the real estate industry has fully recognized, right? I think about the legal framework. Someone steals your house, who covers it? Like who's responsible for it? It's a huge problem. And I think an area where you and I are very aligned is, the industry is just putting more and more work on the title agent, right? And the extent that we can give them tools that make their job more efficient, that help them detect fraud, I think is how we really, deliver a lot of value together. So I'll say I was also really excited when we finally decided to integrate last year, because for years when I was trying to, start my company and I met all these fancy VCs who know everything, they always would say to me, "Isn't blockchain going to get rid of the notary?" And I'd have to explain to them that, notarization is an act, blockchain is a record. Uh,
Yeah.
so by partnering with you guys, it wasn't only cool, but it was also a way of, me showing people the difference between those services. So have you had similar challenges, as you've been out trying to raise money with getting people to understand your vision?
Well, I had a different challenge, Pat. I didn't have those questions about how do you see different parts of the transactions. I guess philosophically with crypto VCs or crypto investors, the most exciting part, which we share and which we understand, is that we see the future where ownership will be transferred on chain, on blockchain, between two identities, between two persons that are verified. And at some point, it will be powered by zero knowledge proof way, where you will verify the person, their signature, their identity. And then once we know that it's verified by proof, it has the proof check mark, we know that we can transfer this ownership to them without knowing their SSN number or without knowing their identity. That protects privacy, but also it provides the security. So we're dreaming about this future. But then I think the major challenge in conversations with generalist VCs were, oh, it's prop tech, but it also has the crypto. We don't understand the crypto. And then when I'm talking to the crypto investors, oh, well, we don't really work with physical assets. That's too boring.
Yeah.
So that has been kind of the major challenge. But in the end of the day, we found true believers of ownership to be transferred digitally. It doesn't matter whether it's blockchain, AI, and so on. Just less bureaucracy, no paper, physical paper, just digital for the new generation to buy homes.
A related problem that I've had with investors in particular is they just don't understand the real estate process, the real estate, transaction, nor do they understand the regulatory requirements and where documents actually go, right? Who gets to approve them, who relies on them. And, so for you guys, when you started out, you've had to walk through sort of all of the chain of the GSEs and the mortgage lenders and whatnot. And so where does industry support stand today for, transferring real estate on chain?
Okay, so one part that also VCs that have shared sometimes that, oh, it's a title business. That's boring and it's very niche. All right, give me the big picture. And then we're telling, well, maybe we'll become, once we automate the transaction piece, maybe we'll become a transaction marketplace, a portal. That's the big picture. It's $100 billion opportunity and so on. So that has been kind of a conversation. But then when it comes to the entire industry acceptance of blockchain and AI, we have the title industry that is very scared. They're scared that AI will the first I guess decade of Propy existence was, oh my God, blockchain will take over our jobs, but maybe it's not anytime soon. Now it's a new fear. AI will take over our businesses and our jobs, and it will happen next year. So the FOMO is tremendous, and it's great for us because we're doing this $100 million roll-up strategy where we're acquiring title companies, and we're seeing great synergy with title owners that are afraid of AI. They join us, and they help us build this AI that will take over the industry. And then the mortgage industry was this year, I don't know if you read about the FHA changes and moves in the crypto space. They shared that they will accept cryptocurrency as a proof of funds, but also potentially as a collateral. So now Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, they will accept it for secondaries. And obviously it will go down to mortgage providers. It will take time, education. Now the crypto cycle is again here with the down run. So it obviously delays the process of awareness. But I think next year, the banks will start offering cryptocurrency and they will custody it. Then the mortgage providers will also start accepting cryptocurrency. So overall, it's kind of the industry players are accepting both blockchain and AI. And it's inevitably just becoming a standard, I think. We're still doing a very small amount of transactions in cryptocurrency, though.
Yeah, but it's growing. And then, so you talked about, the role of the title agent. So in your vision, in your future, is there still a role for a human in the transaction? And what do you think their role is?
Well, I can talk about the near future. And the near future, now that we're acquiring a lot of title companies, it's a $25 billion industry. And about 5 billion of the industry are owned by moms and pops. There are small title company shops, small to medium size. So our goal is to acquire 10 to 20 title companies in each priority state and then keep the entire team. But we want this team to have bigger capacity now with automation. Not right away, but gradually onboarding them on our AI, on our platform, to start closing more transactions than they can. And we're seeing the first results of the first acquisitions already, because instead of a human, we have AI opening transactions on day offs, on the weekends. Transaction is open on its own. The buyer receives earnest money deposit. They schedule proof, the notary, also online. They're being pinged and reminded, everything. This part is very automated. But now the role of the escrow officer is being more available to the realtor and the consumer. So that's what is our culture about, is when our clients want to talk to us, that's the number one priority. Pick up the phone, explain what's going on with the transaction, explain how to open it on Propy and see everything right there. So the human aspect is still very important. As you know, we don't like to talk to phone, robo, call centers. We like to talk to humans when it comes to an important transaction.
I agree with that vision of the future. It's funny for me because, when we were starting out, people would put out these reports and they were trying to, I don't want to say kill us, but they didn't like what we were doing in real estate. And these reports would say, the real estate transaction is not going to go digital because consumers still want to work with a trusted human. And I would always say, yeah, they can do it online. You know what I mean? And they presented these things as a false choice. Hey, you can close your loan online, or you can work with someone that can help you. But of course, you can work with someone online, right? And
Yeah.
so for us with the notary, we're finding that the human in the loop is valuable in a lot of places. We recently published or launched our own fraud detection model, and we're, significantly outperforming other models in the industry for fraud because we have a human in the loop. We've done millions of transactions that the human notaries have helped us, tag and flag and identify. We can fail over a digital transaction to a human to get a judgment. And I think in the AI industry, if you look at the companies like Scale AI and others that have been doing labeling, we've effectively been doing labeling of fraud and trust over millions of transactions for 10 years. I don't see that ever going away, right? And having that judgment and that discernment and that sort of critical role in the process. And same from a customer service, standpoint. So I very much agree with you. I know that it gives people, concern, right? And I can understand why title agents, when they hear what you're doing, think that they don't have a role to play in the future. But I just deeply disagree with that view of the future. I gotta say.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And Pat, what kind of fraud cases you're seeing prevailing in 2025?
I mean, it's wild. I mean, I think when people think about, deep fake fraud and other things like that, they think about it's like North Korea, right? And first off, it is, so first off, we now are not just real estate closings, we're doing HR and hiring and recruiting and payments, and we're in all these other transactions. And it is very real. Like we've heard from some large employers that 75% of applicants are fake now. And these are either, criminal organizations or foreign countries that are trying to get hired by a company and get paid, a couple times, or get access to systems, right? They want to get onboarded, let inside the corporate, firewall access systems. But you know, those are big problems and we're working on those. I think what's more upsetting though is what we see as someone's son or their daughter or their family member, take someone's driver's license, download software off the internet and do a deepfake. And maybe it's their retirement account or it's their, home or mortgage or whatever it may be. And so I think people should realize that these things do hit closer to home. And I think that when we meet with regulators or, elected representatives, what we explain to them is that like, this is here today, like this software to do a deepfake, you just can go download and you can do it in 3 minutes, right? It doesn't require a North Korean government, to do. And so it's really pretty upsetting, what's happening. We've gotten really good at catching it, but it's an arms race in order to solve these problems. And it's here, like I think people read and write about these things like it's some future problem, but it's definitely a problem for today.
Yeah, why is that insane? We should share some fraud cases on Instagram and social media and make a collaboration on the posts so
Yeah, we
people.
should. I mean, look, one of the stories that I think is really catches people's attention is the deed fraud associated with Graceland. I mean, someone tried to steal Elvis's former house, by going into the county and submitting a fraudulent deed. It's crazy, right? It's happening to people's parents and grandparents, and it's a huge problem that we all need to come together to solve. It is solvable, and I think people are working on it. So I just think there's a tremendous amount of progress that's going on. So do you have any asks as it relates to the Genius Act? Like, is there a regulation that doesn't exist that you wish did exist?
Obviously, some of the most natural things we want is the deeds to be recorded on blockchain and it's to be transparent so that the conveyance also collect more data than it is collected today. Like to your point, this outdated system where you could bring a fraudulent deed and it transfers ownership, it should not exist. Rather, you have to submit the entire conveyance data, such as the notary record, all the rest of the data points throughout the transaction. And then if it meets the requirements, then the ownership to be transferred automatically again without that's where I don't believe that humans should be involved. We'll have trusted enough technology today that should make it possible. So we at least eradicate the fraud cases with deeds and changing records. Now, when it comes to deep fakes with AI, that's something I believe you're working on that you'll be solving. But for the deed records, I think that's kind of the easiest thing for regulators to work on.
I totally agree. Well, Natalia, I appreciate you joining us today. Maybe I'll end with just a story and give you a compliment. And I remember I had a call years ago with Glenn Kelman, who's the CEO of Redfin, and he was giving me advice. And he told me, he said, in real estate, things take forever and they happen all at once. And he said, my single biggest advice to you is don't run out of money, don't go out of business. And I've watched you for years. Propy has had a level of determination and grit that most companies can never match, and you and your company is not just survivors. You've been leading this for a long period of time. And I know the day is going to come when this is how the industry is going to go. And I hope people appreciate, the decades of work that you and your team have put into seeing this through. And you're going to make it happen. I have no doubt that Propy is going to lead the charge for on-chain real estate. So I appreciate you joining us very much, Natalia. And we love working with you and your team. And we're absolutely rooting for you and for the best. So I appreciate you joining us.
Thank you, Pat, for long-term support and for being such an example of, again, determination and leading the space and then suddenly winning. So, yeah,
COVID helped us,
I'll,
so it's good. We found our tailwind that got us out of the starting gates. But
yeah.
anyway,
But
well, thank you. That's all we've got.
luck comes with the hard work anyway.
Oh, I certainly believe that. Well, to everyone listening, thank you for joining us today. That's all we've got time for. If you're interested in learning more about Propy and how they're utilizing smart contracts on real estate, you can follow them at Propy Inc. on X and at propy.com, Propy. And you can find the Trust Blueprint on Apple and Spotify, along with full versions on YouTube. And be sure to subscribe for the latest. So thanks again, Natalia. Wishing you the best.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.